Testing 1, 2. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I think it's 1 minute early. But I'm Bob Benninger, W4 APR, and so we'll talk some about APRS, what's old and what's new. And also Rob Riggs is going to talk about his Bluetooth mobile link, and John Hansen, Coastal Chipworks, talk about, I believe, his Raspberry Pi, Tnc type things. And Brian, K7UDR, Northwest Digital Radio, will say what their latest products are.
Can you get the audio adjusted? It's too loud.
Yeah. Does anybody know where the knob is? Okay, let's see how far you can go. Boom, 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 boom. I thought it sounded terrible. Actually, why don't we get somebody up here that knows audio to figure out what knob over there, I mean, anybody, find the volume control. There's just too many colors over there for me to understand. So anyway, we all know that APRS is a local network. It also goes into the internet so that every packet transmitted everywhere goes everywhere. Everything goes in, nothing comes out unless there is it's a message to an actual call sign. Otherwise, it's just a broadcast packet. And APRS is everywhere. This is the just the 35 miles radius around Washington, D.C., Annapolis, and Baltimore. There's over 300 stations there. And this shows over 20,000 terrestrial users. Now, I have to admit, this is back in 2005. You keep turning it down lower and lower. How am I doing? Is that right? And I have no idea how many is out there. I haven't counted recently. But the point about APRS is it's not a tracking system. It is a network for digital exchange of information, and a single channel across all of North America where you tune in there, and in 10 minutes you should have enough information about everything going on in amateur radio. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some special events. You may have seen these before. I've talked about them before. This is the 40-mile Appalachian Trail Run across Maryland, and as you see, we've got plenty of Digipeaters. On the left, in Hagerstown, there's a Digipeater that covers that side, and in Frederick, Maryland, there's Digipeaters on the right side that cover that area. And a lot of people think you want to have Digipeaters along the Appalachian Trail for trail hikers, and no, if you put it on the Appalachian Trail, then the hikers have no height above average terrain. You got to have the Digipeaters in the valleys on either side. So what we wanted to do is, for this 40-mile run event they do every year, is have good coverage. And so we decided to put up just temporary digis that did not operate on 144.39 as an input, but as an output, so that everybody who shows up at the event receives everything on 144.39, but those people who are in the event transmit on 144.99 plus 600, and therefore they have no congestion whatsoever, no collisions, and so they get brickbat priority when they are digipeated back on to 144.39. And this shows the success of that technique. On the right-hand side is the map. We had a hiker go up and start at one of the starting points and hike down several miles, beaconing on 144.39 in competition with every other packet that's out there. And then on his way back to his car, he switched to the split plus 600, and you see he tripled his throughput, because again, his packets were not competing with anybody on the uplink, and then they got transmitted on 144.39 like every other packet. In the lower left-hand corner is a number of portable Digipeaters that I made. The THD72, of course, can be a Digipeater by itself. You just put that in a weatherproof piece of pipe and you've got a Digipeater. The other ones I found coin boxes, change boxes, are just a couple of bucks at Walmart, and they make great, not weatherproof, but portable Digipeaters. And here is something that we did. We had a single person use his HT to report every single runner on that event. And how did he do it? It was my son, so I said, do it. I was at headquarters, at the end, and he started at the end then and started walking, running. He likes to run back along the trail so that he would run into all the individual runners. And then he was carrying the THD 72, and so he would start it, when he saw a runner, he would start an APRS message, he would enter the time, and then he would enter the runner's number. And then he would keep that message going until he saw several other runners, and then when he saw a gap, he would hit send, and that was transmitted. And so you see here, ignore the green messages. That was somebody else was trying to send messages to him along the trail. His call sign was Hiker. But all the pink ones, you can see he reported all 100 runners on that event with a timestamp as to when they were seen, and because he is using the APRS radio, he's being tracked, so we know where on the map those runners were seen. Simple. We got to start using these radios. We got tremendous power, and yet all people do is stick a tracker on something and then put up a screen, and then they say, well, we can see where these things are. But you can't see where all the things are that don't have trackers on them. And 90% of the ham radio operators that show up at a special event don't have an APRS radio, and so it's always a sideshow. We need to involve everybody in the special event. Going back to the Digipeaters, that's showing how I stuffed a D700 and a 8 ampere hour 12-volt battery all in the little coin box, and I forgot to download the map. 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years ago, we got permission to go in the Mammoth Cave, and that's why we have all these Digipeaters. And we went a mile underground, and we're able to communicate anywhere along the entire route, 14 Digipeaters, and no problem at all. And the Park Service, they were very impressed, and they send me a thing every year that said, are you coming back to, go further into the cave, and I just haven't had time for it. But that shows the power of, if you can have a network where you have everything in a row, you don't have any duplicates. You don't have anything stepping on each other. The packet just goes boop, 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 down and comes back. It's a great luxury. The only place you can do it is underground, or go on your own frequency, and this is what we do once a year along the Appalachian Trail. It's called the AT Golden Packet Event. We've been doing it since, I've already forgotten. I guess this is our 11th year, maybe. We got so tired of getting no respect for APRS at field day. They put you over in a corner and, have you got your 100 points yet? And then when you have, they says, well, okay, go away. So I still go there. I do APRS, and I'm not doing it for points. I'm doing it because it's field day, and I'm out there, and I want to see how far in the world I can communicate. And so you know that with your HT, you can communicate anywhere in the world. And for field day, we have a special thing. It's called CQ server. So you send a message to CQ server, and the first word is CQ field day, and then you give your report, and that goes everywhere in the world to everybody else at every other field day site who has done the same thing. And yet, what? I think 1 year we've had 12 people do it. I mean, come on, if you're at field day and you got nothing else to do, send a message to CQ field day and communicate all over the world. So anyway, 14 Digipeater hops from Maine to Georgia, and we finally had success, I believe, in 2009, and we've been doing it every year, trying to think of something better to do. We did it in 9600, Bob, most recently. To make this work, of course, we switch over to 144.34 temporarily for this event. Anybody know what 144.34 is nominally used for? Actually, it's balloons. All the balloons go up on 144.34, and in Southern California, the ATV, the television operators use it. But we figure this is only a 3 or 4 hour event, and so we take over the balloon channel because, and in fact, every year that we do it, we'll usually see a balloon somewhere, and it's pretty cute. And of course, my position, the station that I operate is right there in the middle. Let's see if there's a pointer up here. What's this AccuRite thing? Okay. Thank you. You came prepared. So I'm right there in the middle at Governor Dick Hill, which is it's the only site where you can't drive, well, there are 3 sites that you can't drive up. GD Hill, Katahdin. Tim, are you here? Come on. Everybody who has participated in the AT Golden Packet, stand up. And what event, what place are you at? Apple Orchard Mountain. That's a tough one. Got a lot of QRM. Mount Greylock. That's tough. A lot of QRM. Which one? Hawksbill. Yeah, so we got the New Englanders up here. And it's a great event. We also want to extend it. One year we extended it all the way down to Lookout Mountain in Birmingham, and we'd like to get somebody on Stone Mountain in Georgia. But anyway, my tower, it's pretty flat there in that part of Pennsylvania, so I go and climb this tower that, and have to carry all the gear up to the top and operate, it's ladders straight up, 100 feet tower. And, but the public, anybody can do it. So how do I get my power up there to run 2 computers and a 50-watt radio and everything else? And so I used a single wire earth return. I drive a ground rod in, run a kilometer of wire down to my car in the parking lot, plug into the cigarette lighter inverter, 2 capacitors, 2 diodes, doubles to 300 volts. That goes on the wire, and at the top I just plug in a laptop power supply. You can plug in, almost every modern electronic equipment will run on 100 to 240 volts AC, which means it'll also run on 70 to 330 volts DC. And so I'm able to deliver plenty of power. And that's what the whole thing looks like. You can see the inverter, just a 100-watt inverter that plugs in a cigarette lighter, the 2 capacitors, 2 diodes, clipped to the ground rods, a kilometer of wire, and then a binding post, the smaller ground rods, plug into the laptop power supply, and you got power anywhere you want to go. It turns out the resistance in the wire is the hardest part. The resistance in the ground is only 10 ohms. For back east. Try to do this out west, forget about it. You know, rocks don't conduct, sand doesn't conduct, and so it's very, very area dependent, but back east here you can deliver a lot of power. In fact, in Australia, I believe they can deliver 100 kilowatts, 100 miles using this technique over just, you know, number 12 wire or something along decibel. We keep encouraging other groups in the country to get involved. The Pacific Coast Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, the Lewis and Clark Trail. There's lots of other trails. You know, do a special event. Get those APRS people out of their shack and doing something. So learn and practice your APRS radio skills. You know, you can send messages, your own station parameters, position memories, and now with the new Kenwoods, you can even send objects, and that's very important for special events and things when you can just place something on the map and everybody else can see where it is. But you're not going to be able to do that if you try to figure out when you get there. So events with numbers are ideal for APRS. Our local troops and Cub Scout packs, every year they have these Klondike Derbies, and the troops go around all these different places and they get a score. And then a half hour later the horn blows and they rotate. So we have 20 scores from 20 different troops that have to be reported to headquarters. And in the past, it was always done by voice. So that means 20 ham radio operators, 1 guy at net control, writing down these 20 reports coming in. And so I said, well, we can do that with APRS, and there was very little interest. So what we did was we clipped a D700 control head right there on the top of his clipboard where he writes this information down. And then out in the field, you'll see my message to NetCon reporting the score for Troop 874 was 42. I hit send. I get an ACK back. It shows up on his list. And when he, the net control operator, has time to push the button and read that message, he can write the score down. Remember out there in the field, you know, we try to send in a score and the guy's busy. He's busy. You know, you don't know what is on his plate. With APRS, you just send the data and then he pulls it off of his clipboard
when he's ready for it. He loved it. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it comes in. Now, if you can do that just by sending, 5 numbers, why not send it with touch tone? Everybody has a radio that can do touch tone. Even these Bofangs are, I never figured out how to pronounce them. And if everybody has a touch tone, they can send in the information. If everyone who is sending in information by touch tone was listening to a separate channel that had the automatic voice response that would acknowledge what they sent in and would tell them all other kinds of information, you can do just about everything that's at an APR special event. Now, of course, I've been talking about this since 2001, right? And still, one guy has written some software to do it. Is he here? I keep forgetting his web page, but there's software out there to do it. But even Bionics has built a touch-tone daughter board that plugs into their Tiny Track 4, and so it will do basic position reporting. In addition to basic position reporting, I added a basic stamp processor. This is just a stamp bolted to the case upside down, so it's a dead bug. And what it does is when the event starts, I push go, and this thing automatically generates the lead runner throughout an entire marathon, totally by prediction. We know when the lead runner is going to cross the finish line, right? And so this thing is always showing the lead runner without having to have an APRS attached to him. You can see where he goes. Now, every time somebody reports that the lead runner is a little ahead of schedule, a little behind schedule based on what they're watching on APRS, I have a button I can push that says slow down. All right, so I can modify this. And the number one value of knowing where the lead runner is because the policeman at each checkpoint, he needs to know when the lead runner is coming around the corner so that he can stop traffic. Okay, so this system did that without all the voice traffic. Somebody says the lead runner is north of Station 8. How does that help you visualize where he is? And then 5 minutes elapsed and you've lost the bubble as to where is that lead runner. Whereas with APRS, it's trivial. So now, what else can you use APR's touchtone for? If there's one at every repeater, remember, every time we get in our car, we say WB4 APR mobile, kerchunk, okay? Why can't we... I guess I didn't have the volume up. We'll do it this way. Okay, that not only sent my call sign, it happened to also send my grid square, but that accomplishes far more than just saying WB4 APR mobile. WB4 APR mobile is only heard by the people who happen to be listening to the radio at that instant. Otherwise, it's lost. When you send out this packet, it goes worldwide, right? It goes into the APRS, it gets converted to APRS, goes into the APRS network, and it's repeated by voice. Oh, what comes out on the voice repeater is WB4 APR mobile. Okay, so you're accomplishing the same thing except that it goes worldwide. People know you just got on the air, it knows what repeater you're on, and it knows where in the planet you are. We can do this with touchtone. Have been able to do it for the last 18 years. I just keep talking about it. For several years, we would set it up at Dayton. Just carrying this little card in your 5x7, 3x5 card in your pocket with just 2 digits, 1 digit for vertical and 1 digit for horizontal. You can place yourself within 100 feet anywhere at the Dayton Hare Arena just by pressing 2 buttons using DTMF. When everybody goes, and so we did it one year, and these are the people that actually reported their positions, and if you did not report your position, it would put you somewhere in the parking lot where everybody knew that you're here, otherwise you would not have been picked up on that simplex frequency, but you are at Dayton, everybody in the world can see you're at Dayton, you happen to be over there in the woods, but APRS knows you're there. Just 2 keys, plus your call sign. Then remember the map that's in the pamphlet we all get. 2 digits horizontal, 2 digit vertical, and you can put yourself within a mile anywhere within the greater metropolitan area. And that's fantastic for meetups in the evening and, finding the best bar and everything else. Again, just 4 digits touchtone. So Now, the reason I'm talking about it again, I kind of stopped talking about it for a while because the module that we've been building for 4 years and fighting the FCC is finally being launched next month, all going well with Elon Musk and SpaceX. And so we will finally have a satellite. So every amateur radio operator in the world will get to experience using touchtone. And again, when that satellite comes in view, all you have to do is, and the satellite will say WB4 APR grid square FM 19 QSO number 1. All right, now if you want to make a two-way QSO with that, all you have to do is enter the digit 1 and then hit your pre-programmed key that QSLs with your call sign and your grid square. Yes?
Okay, you're using this for your station ID. Is that a legal station ID?
My call sign gets reported in the APRS network worldwide. It gets reported on the voice reports it on that repeater, so.
How about on the reverse though? If you're actually transmission, is that a legal identification of your transmission?
Touchstone is perfectly legal on amateur radio. Go hire a lawyer. It's legal. It's fine for me. I'm sorry. Who knows? You know, we can argue about it forever. Now, the things that are new in the THD 74 is that I've been asked for Kenwood to do this because you enter your parameters in here, and then somebody says, well, you're showing up as a pickup truck. Well, and you have to go through all kinds of menus to see what you look like. So finally, in the D74, you show up in the list just like everybody else. And so when you beacon, you show up at the top of the list. So you can see how you're moving in the list as far as, you know, time sequencing. Another thing that's new is there are 5 position memories. The primary purpose of this is maybe if you're not using GPS, you're indoors and you have a position for your office and your girlfriend and so forth. But if the primary purpose of this is so you put in the position of an object by saying, save this location as an object, as a position, then you go to the object entry and you say use that position for this object, and then you can, you know, enter the object, the text, and everything else, and you have just now reported a fire or an accident or a runner down or whatever you want using your HT and not a whole lot of words on the voice simplex channel. So the key focus is amateur radio applications focus, and why do we need APR satellites? Because there are balloons going around, ham radio balloons that go around the world 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's just fantastic. The Naval Academy, never mind, ours made it to Africa. But so this is what the APRS satellite network kind of looked like a few years ago, and that's how big a around the world payload looks like. It's solar powered, so battery's not a limitation. It's very lightweight, and you can light it, send it up on a party balloon. Of course, when you surface and you have no comms at all, 1200 baud text is great. That's Rear Admiral Chaz Richards, W4HFZ. I like to use that slide. Now, a lot of you, how many of you do satellites? Probably not all that many, right? Do you realize that's how many amateur satellites are up there now? There is always an amateur satellite in view, almost, and so if you take on that hobby, you're not sitting there waiting. There's always something to tune in. And I like this page. I just found it this last week, and so the list of all the satellites here, or you could click on it there. When you click on it, you get an image of what that satellite looks like. This is its elevation above, that's its azimuth, and that's its elevation above the horizon. It's a fantastic tool, and it's just a web page. Just go to that web page and you can see where all the satellites are. But this is the one that I like. I wrote one like this years ago, and this is a timeline about every 10 minutes, and you can see that about every 10 minutes there's another satellite in view, and this is the elevation. So UO11 is a direct overhead pass there. Most of these passes are, you know, off on the horizon somewhere, but there's a lot of tools out there if you want to get involved in it. Of course, we have ground stations all around the world, and PSAT, which was launched in May 2015, is up there alive and well doing APRS and PSK31. The problem is it only has a 250 milliwatt transmitter, so you kind of have to have a beam to receive it. But the new satellite, PSAT-2, that's going up has 1.5 watts. So it's It's 7 dB stronger than the previous one, and so you should be able to pick that up on your mobile radio. It also has PSK31. The challenge with, of course, these satellites is when you put 7 antennas on it, we just put a burn resistor there and wrap all the antennas around until all the antenna tips arrive right there, put a fishing line around it, and that's how we deploy the antennas. The PSK has a Doppler. Oh, by the PSK PSK uplink is on 10 meters. The PSK downlink is on UHF FM. So you don't have to tune Doppler. You get a waterfall, and if the person on the 10-meter uplink is not transmitting, is not compensating for Doppler, there will be some Doppler, but it's only about 1 hertz per second, and a lot of Doppler code can keep, PSK31 can keep up with it. But if you borrow, if you use Andrew Flowers' special uplink software, it will pre-compensate for the satellite movement so that you appear in downlink not moving, and that makes it very easy to QSO. Oh, and it also gives you an uplink PSK31 because all the other PSK31s are not meant to be full duplex. You're going to be doing this full duplex. Your 10-meter uplink is on all the time, and you're just typing text to everybody that's on that's in the waterfall, and you can see all of them, you know, with the multiple waterfalls. And PSAT has been doing this PSK31 for 4 years now. Not a lot of users on it. So anyway, there's a lot about remote data applications. If you have a buoy or a remote weather station or something, we've shown that with just the 2 APRS satellites, if you transmit a packet once every 2 minutes, you got a good chance that at least once an orbit, you will get one of those data packets back. And so I challenge my students to think of a remote environmental sensor you want to go put in Mongolia. Find somebody, go to Mongolia, take this over there, put it there, and we'll see it on your desktop. This is what I wanted to demo and then realized I didn't bring it in from my car. The QuickCom 1 is actually QuickCom 2, and you see it's this module, and it is the one that has the touch tone uplink and the APRS downlink. It was attached to that spacecraft, but the FCC still would not let students at the Naval Academy who are government employees build and operate an amateur satellite. They wanted, we had to get DOD frequencies. We just could not get it in time. 4 years of paperwork, we still could not get to pay. So they cut it loose and launched without it. Last week, I called the launch provider and I said, at least tell me what host satellite it's on so we can say our thing is up there. He said, oh, we removed it at the last minute. So he shipped it back to me. So now we have a payload, that's, the touch tone payload that's looking for another launch. But it is included in PSAT 2, which has just been launched. And I was going to give you a demo. I already told you what the Grid FM19 from WB4 APR CQ number 1, and then you can also send any of 100 messages, you know, the ARL standard messages, and so forth. Because remember, everything in amateur radio has already been said before anyway, so imagine trying to send a text message with just DTMF. No, just send the number. Somebody's already said it before. We got 100 messages pre-programmed. The difference in PSAT 2 is instead of using $200 worth of solar cells, we use $20,000 solar cells, the latest state of the art. And just for comparison purposes, $20,000 to get 3 watts in space. This is one of the arrays at my home. It costs about $1,000 and gives me 3 kW. So those people who say you're waiting for high-efficiency solar cells, we've had high-efficiency solar cells since 1970. It's just they always cost 1,000 times more than garden variety solar cells, which produce half as much power. The space industry will pay anything for that factor of 2 power. The homeowner will not pay a dime more. So if you, and I will be giving my energy talk on Sunday. Now this is the slide that shows the cost of high efficiency cells does nothing but go up, and the cost of low efficiency cells does nothing but go down. So if you want to hear more about energy, solar and all that, my talk is Sunday at 10:30. I believe it's in this room. So now Oh, this one slide says it all. Just 9 solar panels could fully charge, well, 12. 12 solar panels can fully charge a modern electric vehicle for the average 40 miles American miles a day forever. Never go to a gas station. No more wars over foreign oil and everything else. 12 solar panels, you got transportation for life. It's a whole new world. Okay, so now, yes, we'll go to rigs. See if we can find. Do you have some slides? I do not. Boy, that was a long talk. There it is, Rob Riggs, WX90.
Hi, folks. Great to be here. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate that. Yeah. So I just was up here, was asked to come up here and talk about our new TNC3 from MobileLink. So we have a new Bluetooth Low Energy Tnc3 designed to connect with iOS devices. We've had the TNC2 out for quite a while. It's Bluetooth connected. It's designed primarily for use with Android devices. There's been a lot of demand to use our product with iOS, and so we've created the Bluetooth Low Energy version of this. We worked closely with Hesu, who, as most of you know, is famous for APRS-FI. He has the APRS-FI app on iOS. The benefit of this, doing this device is you have the rich user interface of a smartphone. Everyone here has one in their pocket, almost everyone. There are a few Luddites I've found. Bob. But these devices have GPS already built into it. We don't need to provide that. And they have rich user interfaces. You've got a microprocessor in there that's far more capable than anything I can embed in here. And we've got great software engineers out there like Hesu, like George Lucas, who created APRS Droid, to create wonderful user interfaces for interacting with APRS. People are using these for communicating with IIS. It's a very simple interface. You can really speed up the communication protocol with canned replies built into your smartphone. And so one of the things that I wanted to give you guys a talk about, and I have not had time to really do, and it's something that I owe the APRS community, is the specs for the Bluetooth Low Energy. We'd like everyone who's going to be creating devices like this to, we've done a lot of the work to create the interface between the smartphone and the TNC. We think a lot of people can make use of that technology that we've created, and it would, I think, benefit anyone else who's creating TNCs and APRS devices, whether they be radios with built-in TNCs or other adapters or other TNC manufacturers. So I owe that to the APRS community here, and I hope to get that out later this year, probably within the next couple of months. The other thing that we are very conscious of, our first product started out as an Arduino project that someone, I showed it off, somebody said, I want one of those, right? So that's how we started off, and it's been we created, when we released our product, we created a little breadboard TNC project that anyone could use to create basically a working version of our TNCs. And it's been a great success. We've had a lot of people build these things on breadboards and give us feedback, and it's been wonderful to see that. We have a version coming for the TNC3 as well. It's also built off of a small STM microprocessor. We've got open source software that runs on that, and it's easily constructed on a breadboard with maybe $20, $30 worth of parts. So you should be seeing that being published on our website as well. We really want to encourage people, experimenters, to play around with these products and these tools. But the one thing I did want to leave with you is the idea that your smartphones, most of us have them, have a great user interface for doing APRS. You've got the map view right there. You have great texting capabilities. Some of them will even do speech to text, right, that you can do right on your phone. These are great new technologies and great new advances for us in the APRS community. So, if there are any questions I can answer right now? Yes, sir.
By way of background, I'm an automotive engineer active in cybersecurity for the Society of Automotive Engineers.
Okay,
The goal is to keep the bad guy out of your car.
got it.
At our regular meetings, which happen 2 times a month, one of the things we're very, very concerned about, which we get briefings on, is bad guys hacking into IoT things like Bluetooth.
Got it.
Using that as a pivot, or as a gateway, as a back door to get into not only the car, but your cell phone and everything else. So my question to you is, in terms of cybersecurity, not just a username and a password, but what other, from an engineering point of view, are you doing in terms of to secure your product against hackers?
Got it.
Getting in?
So the question was, what are we doing to secure our product against hackers from accessing, what are we doing within our product for cybersecurity to prevent hackers from taking over your TNC? And the fact is, we're doing nothing, because the most that anyone can do is start transmitting on your radio on an APRS frequency.
That only takes care of that. You just said you can go to your phone, and we've already documented that. You go from there to your phone got shared from your phone.
So the only thing that's being connected to the phone here is a data connection, serial over Bluetooth, or a very dedicated data connection. There's no other data coming across that can be used to hack your phone unless there's an application. So there's the application that is running on your phone is the one that will need to be protected, right? They're the one that's consuming the data that's coming across. Sorry, any other questions? Yeah, that's true. It is open source. We're very much pro open source in this. If you want to review it, if anyone wants to add, do a security audit on the code and contribute fixes, we are very welcome to take those in. We'd love nothing more than to see people contributing to that. Yes, sir. The TNC3 will interface with any iOS or APRS, or sorry, Android smart device. Oh, on the radio side? Pretty much any radio. So we make cables for a wide variety of the more common radios, the HTs. What's that? Yes, it's speaker mic connection. So, and we, publish the pinouts, so if you happen to have some oddball radio, you can make your own. We're more than happy to give you the help for that. Yes, sir. I have a booth here. 6703. We're in the tent. We've got a big sign. Come find us. You've earned your commission. Yes, sir. Mobilelinked.com. MOBILINKD.com. I should be better at this promotion stuff. All right. Anything else? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I only have one question. To me, this is a TNC, okay? And so what you've done here is you've simply got a TNC and a radio,
Yep.
and then now your smartphone is your user interface.
User interface, anything else,
Okay.
any of the other software that you need.
All right. What I'm trying to do is get every software author that writes code, that does everything in the world, to start off with a block diagram that shows where the antenna is, the radio, and the connections, and then show me what's in software. They get up here and talk about what's in software, and I have no idea what they're talking about. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it, Bob.
Okay, and now John Hanson, W2FS Coastal Chip Works, will talk more about software.
You know how to plug this in? I'm not sure where you're,
Let's see what it's from you. Well, I've got to exit out of that.
yeah, exactly. Okay, this will be done on the next drive down.
There it is. Do it.
Yeah,
Okay, which one?
the bottom. Thank you.
Wow, I can even operate this.
Yeah.
think it, is it not that one?
You see what's up here? We got to get to that screen.
What the hell is that?
Any computer geeks here want to figure this out?
I think you just push OK. Yeah, there you go. Just push OK. Good morning. My name is John Hansen, W2FS, and my company is Coastal Chipworks. If you've been around for a while, you've probably seen one of these. It was a TNCX that's now been out for almost 20 years, believe it or not. Whoever thought people would still be buying TNCs after 20 years? In 2013, John Wiseman, G8BPQ. The call sign may be familiar to you if you're used to using BPQ networking software, particularly back in the early days of Packet. Got a hold of me and he said, I've been looking at your TNCX and I think it would be a nice mate for a Raspberry Pi computer. And so he said what he'd done, because TNCX is open source, what he'd done is he'd taken the code in from the TNCX and he had ported it and made a few modifications so that it was designed for a Raspberry Pi. And he asked me if I wanted to make the thing, and I said, no, I don't think so. I can't imagine there's much interest in that. And 6 months went by, and he got back to me, and he said, are you sure? And another month went by. I said, no, I don't think so. And another month went by, and he said, hey, look, if you aren't going to do this, I'm going to go find somebody else. He said, I'm just certain you can sell at least 40 of them. And I thought, well, these are the same parts that are in TNCX. It's not like I've got to invest in a new part stock. We'll put out a batch of these and see how they go. The first batch sold out in 20 minutes. After the first 2,000 were sold, I quit my job. And by the way, I was a tenured university professor when I quit my job. Because it was either this or that. And frankly, this has been a lot more fun. So, so here's what it looks like. Anybody own one of these? Yeah, I thought so. It's on top of a Raspberry Pi computer. You probably know by now it's a $35 computer. And it provides the TNC functionality. Radio connector here, and you're basically ready to go. You don't power it off of anything except for the Raspberry Pi. So there are no further connections to make here. This is a 7-inch Raspberry Pi touchscreen display. It costs either $60 or $70. And this is this unit running Zaster, the APRS program. When this first started getting going, this was a little slow writing these maps. The Raspberry Pi is, it's not a very powerful computer. But they've come out like 6 or 7 more versions of Raspberry Pi since then. And every single one of them has cost $35. And every single one of them has more power and more features than the previous one had. So this is getting to be a reasonable approach to doing this sort of thing. Now, last week, I was contacted by Pete Klotzbach, I hope I pronounced that right, AF9AF, who said, have you run Yak on this? It's another APRS program. And he said, I have put together a really instructions for dummies on how to get going with a Raspberry Pi and get Yak up and running on this. And I thought, well, terrific. Now, I don't have a screen display of this yet, but I'm mentioning this here today because probably not next week, because after I leave town for a few days, I get a little busy the next week. But the week after that, this will be on the TNC Pi website. So those of you who have been a little apprehensive about digging into Linux will be able to do this without doing any editing in Linux. It's going to be pretty neat. what I wanted to talk about today really was some of the other things people are doing with this. Mark Griffith, KD0QYN, has a program called Pigate, and it's designed to run on a TNC Pi and on top of a Raspberry Pi. And the idea behind this is if you're running an emergency command center and you want to be able to send health and welfare traffic on the part of people who are in the center, this allows them to do it without bothering you, except, of course, registering with you because they're going to be sending traffic over amateur radio. It could be done one of two ways. You could either set aside a user tablet or laptop, and this email that you're going to send is sent from the web browser, so everybody knows how to use it, or you can come in via Wi-Fi using the user's smartphone, so that users in the command center or within range of this Pigate server will be able to send email messages simply by using the web browser in their smartphone. And of course, the rest of this is all standard WinLink. The other thing that's really great about what Mark has done is there was a version of WinLink available for Linux. It was called Packlink Unix, I believe. It was not very widely used. WinLink is used almost exclusively on Windows computers, but the Raspberry Pi is pure Linux. And what he did was he created a disk image that bundles all of this together. So once again, you don't have to be a Linux expert to do this. And so the email could either go out via VHF radio or HF radio, depending on whether we're talking about a small area emergency or a large area emergency. Another interesting application is from Tad Torbert, who developed, I'm not sure how this is pronounced, TARPN data switch, in which he's got a Raspberry Pi down here, and instead of stacking, what's he got there, 4 or 5 TNC Pis on top of it, he connects them with a ribbon cable, but basically what he gets out of this is if you had stacked up a bunch of these TNC Pis on top of the Raspberry Pi, and yes, you can use it as a data switch then. Okay, so that's been out now for about 6 years, believe it or not. Many thousands sold. And so what's next? This is less than a year old. This product is a little different than anything else that I've ever done before in that I had no role in developing it whatsoever. I'm here only on behalf of John Wiseman providing the manufacturing for it. All of these devices are available as kits. The TNC Pi is $40. This is a very interesting product that John Wiseman put together. It uses, what you're looking at right here is something called a Tnc board, which is a single board computer with quite a bit of power to it. And so what he did was he took the software that was developed by Thomas Saylor, and that was years ago, and he modified it so it could be directly loaded into a Tnc. And with some associated circuitry, now you have 9600 baud packet, 1200 baud packet, 300 baud packet for HF. And the thing that people seem to be really going after this for is the Amateur Radio Digital Open Protocol, which is similar to something like PACTOR or WinMore, only faster, and it is designed for HF. This has been available since last fall and can be purchased now at www.coastalchipworks.com. Okay, that's it for me. Any questions? Yes? Pardon me? I do have a card. Yes? What you ought to do is go to www.tnc-x.com, and that will take you to all of the TNCs that have come out of this, including TNC Pi, TNCX. By the way, there was, I think it's going to be discontinued because there hasn't been enough interest, a version available for the BeagleBone Black 2, that's on that page, and the 9K6 version. Yes?
What's the cost of the 9K6?
$75 kit. Anybody else? Okay, pardon me? I am not here selling. I gave that up some years ago. I'm getting too old. Yep.
Oh, hold on. Let
You
me,
know, you don't have to eject them anymore.
well, let me just at least close this. I'm still paranoid. Okay. On your way out here, I see 3 people. How many people don't know what voice alert is? It's built into every APRS radio, and nobody's using it. Okay. Voice, you're driving in North America with a radio on 144.39 with the volume turned down. You're completely wasting a radio. The idea of voice alert is you don't turn the volume down, you set CTCSS 100. That now gives you totally quiet while you're driving, but if anybody else is within simplex range, transmitting a once-a-minute position report, burp, you'll hear that. That tells you there's somebody within voice simplex range calling CQ on 144.39, listening with his ears. And so, you know, when you hear one of those beeps, you know somebody's in range, put out a call on 144.39 by voice. And then QSY to 5.2 or something to have a dialogue. But remember, when you're crossing somebody at 70 miles an hour, that's 140 miles an hour, you only got 2 chances probably to hear that guy's once a packet beacon. And so, you know, nobody's calling CQ on 5.2. I could not raise a single contact, 500-mile trip to Dayton this year. Not one single 5.2 contact. So, but all you guys were out there, but you didn't have CTCSS 100 set, so we passed right by each other and we didn't even know it. So anyhow, learn what voice alert is. It's in every radio because all you're doing is turning the volume up and setting CTCSS 100. APRS continues to operate normally. Brian, you're nickel. Do you have slides? Okay, you just plug in.
HDMI.
That would be here. There was a white adapter somewhere. Oh, does that work?
Yep, I got it.
Even on an Apple?
Adapter box.
Okay.
We just turn this one on. I'll just go.
Stack them up. Got 3 of them piled up now. How are we doing on time? This is over at what, 11:50? So you got 12 minutes. Can you do it?
Absolutely. I can do it in 11.
And if he finishes earlier, is there anything for the benefit of all APRS that somebody wants to introduce from the floor? If there are any minutes at the end, okay. Brian?
Thank you, Bob. Okay, I'm up. I got 12 minutes, 11 minutes. First off, round of applause for Bob. He's been doing this a long time. He's a fantastic contributor to amateur radio. Okay, you've already know about the Raspberry Pi. You're all tuned up on that. So let's get down to what we make, which is a board called DRAWS. Who knows about a UDRC? Only a few people. Good. Forget about it. This is the new one, so it doesn't matter anyway. What is it? It's a board that goes on top of a Raspberry Pi. They call them hats, hardware attached on top. And in my view, it completes the Pi to make it the digital radio amateur workstation. What do I mean by that? Okay, so start off, Pis are 5-volt powers. How many folks have a 5-volt radio? A 5-volt station. So the first thing we do is we take 12 volts and buck it down and we make 5 and we back power the Pi. This is important because the Pi off the shelf is USB powered, but it doesn't meet the USB spec. It'll die at 4.5 volts. In fact, it'll die at 4.85 volts. So we guarantee 5.1 volts on the Pi. And surprisingly, we have solved a number of really weird software problems by getting a different power supply. So that's number one. Number two, you'll see on there 2 mini DIN 6s. So there's 2 radio ports, standard mini DIN 6 to many radios, different cables to other radios. They are fully independent, so you can operate 2 different applications on 2 different ports. We're going to go into that more. What can you put on the port? Well, it's a soft modem, so it does digital modes, and I mean all of them. Digital voice, like D-Star, Yaesu Fusion, DMR. It does packet. We use the excellent Direwolf modem, TNC, to do packet. 1200 baud, 9600 baud, 300 baud. We even do 19.2. And we also do all the HF stuff, all the FL Digi stuff, WSJTX. So it truly is a universal platform because all the modems are in software. So 2 ports there, power in. The little thing in the corner, that's not a transceiver, that's a GPS input. So we have an external LNA antenna, and we do GPS, and originally we used to put this on a USB port, but putting it on the board allows us to do one thing which is really cool. Who knows about pulse per second? A few people. So GPS satellites don't give you position, they give you time. And using time, you compute position. So if you take your standard computer and run NTP, the network time protocol, you'll find that you're what's called a stratum 12 to 16 time source. That means you're 12 to 16 hops from a stratum 0, which is an atomic clock, like the Naval Observatory, or the GPS satellites. With this and pulse per second, what you compute is a stratum 1 time source, one hop. Now, why does that matter? It actually doesn't, because the GPS itself is accurate enough for all the real ham radio purposes when you factor in the propagation delay for typical HF signals. But it's cool, and it gives you bragging rights. And there are applications not written yet that will take advantage of that to use location using HF propagation only. And if that were available separately, you'd buy that function for $300, and you could serve it to the rest of your network. So there's the hardware. That's what it looks like. So it goes on top of a Pi, and we're now bringing it to the point where we're going to give it to you in an enclosure, a nice aluminum box. So that's a turnkey system that sets down. We talked about that. It's a soft TNC, does all the stuff. How do you deploy it? Well, it's a Pi, so you can do it 2 ways. You can add a keyboard, mouse, display, operate locally. I call that workstation mode. I do that in my shack, but most of the time I operate in couch mode, which means we run a VNC server on the Pi, and we just network into it. If you come over to our booth at 1105, you'll see an excellent bait and switch. There's a Yaesu 817 sitting there, all hooked up to this device, and right next to it's a screen showing WSJTX with signals pouring in and being decoded. That radio's at my house in the San Juan Islands in Washington. So we're showing you what it physically looks like, but the actual signals are from a remote system. What's interesting also is, who heard Bruce Perrin's talk this morning? I'm sorry. Anyway, Bruce went on and on about this. All this software is either open source or VNC actually has a free server license with every Raspberry Pi. And you can download a free client because you're an amateur radio operator. You're not a professional entity. Rig control. A long time ago, when I first met Bob in 2012, I did a thing called a hailing channel for packet radio. And the idea is you've got this common channel, let's call it APRS. And when you get there, you talk to people, you make some kind of connection, and then you want to talk more, but you don't want to jam up the APRS channel. Well, what do you do in an HF net? Let's go down 5 and pass our traffic. Using rig control, we can automate that so we can auto switch that function. And that brings up some interesting things. Who's doing 9600 baud anything? That's what I thought. Using this device, you can actually run in parallel a 1200 and 9600 baud receiver on the same channel, and then you can respond in turn. Now, I would not put that on APRS, but I would put it on a WinLink system. There was the hailing channel. Frequency agile Digipeaters, that's another cool thing we can do. The APRS Authenticated Gateway, this is a pet project for me. I had a friend in Mumbai during the terrorist attack, and he jammed out the last SMS text that got out of India. It said, "Mom, I'm okay." And isn't that what you kind of want in an emergency? Well, I got kids spread around the country, they're all hams, and what I want to build is an automated gateway from 2 meters off the Digi down to my house over to 30 meters, which, as you know, propagation-wise is pretty good somewhere all the time. Now, for that, we're going to use the Joe Taylor modem, which is far better than 300 packet or all the rest of stuff. We're going to use JS8 calls. But we are not going to gate the entire APRS traffic onto 30 meters. What we're going to do is another idea I had a few years ago that somebody mentioned Yak. Yak is Andrew Pavlin, yet another APRS client. Andrew implemented a feature I talked about, which is authenticated messaging, where you can send messages and they go in the clear, they're not encrypted, but a receiving station can authenticate that this message came from you and has not been tampered with. And if I have that, then I can have this HF gateway and I can forward traffic through it to HF, but you can't, because we don't want to just drag all the traffic and force it over to HF. Let's back up. Bob started with touchtone. Direwolf does have APRS touchtone built into it. Now, I haven't seen any application software yet that takes advantage of it. But that's where the community comes in. If enough hams ask one of the application developers to add that, it'll end up in there. And Andrew might be a good candidate because it's more actively developed than Zaster is. Zaster's a great program, fine folks, but the level of activity is pretty low. Okay, sales model. What's it cost? Raw board's 150 bucks. Kit, not a board kit. Everything we do is surface mount, both sides, fully assembled. You provide the Pi and the card, and we give you the board and the case and the cables and the GPS antenna, and you do the final assembly. That's 200 bucks. And if you want a turnkey, absolutely everything, we put it together, put the software on it, put together an image. John talked about PyGate. That's an image-based solution, and he's right, it gets you out of a lot of the low-level details. We do the whole thing, 300 bucks. SD card image is, of course, a free download because it is all open source software provided by the wonderful folks in the ham radio community. Let's take a quick TNC comparison. If I go on HRO, they'll say the KPC 3 Plus is the MCOM standard. And they're right. How many folks have one? How many folks have more than one? I mean, right, it's a brick, it sits down, it works. It's an old design, it works on a Motorola 6811. It has a serial, now it's been updated to USB interface. It does 1200 AFSK, has an optional real-time clocking, costs $200. 2 minutes, thank you. Or you can buy a 9612 that will do 9600 on one port, that's $400. Or you can buy a draws board turnkey for $300 and get both of those, plus a signal link, plus a lot more. So the economics seem to work out. The other thing that's kind of neat about this is you can simply do more and it stays up to date because the modems are all in software. In my final 90 seconds, any questions? Yes, sir. Do we have availability now? The boards are available now, the cases are still being sorted out. And it's been in production since last fall, and there's about 1,000 in the field now. Okay, there's no stock over there, but they're actually in assembly now. Question in the back? Thank you very much. Squim? I can see it.
I don't have an APR's booth this year, but I will be in the ARRL area in the authors, meet the author, because again, they have my book right here on energy, which I'll be talking about on Sunday, and I'll be signing copies of those.